too. But what about the pet waste in your backyard? Pick it up regularly, and especially before rain or irrigation water washes any of it into a backyard drain. Your pet's poo is full of bacteria and nutrients.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Public Utilities for the City of Santa Rosa to order. If we may have a roll call, please.
Board Member Wright?
Here.
Board Member Mullen is absent. Board Member DeWitt is absent. Board Member Bartholow is absent. Board Member Badenfort?
Here.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Here.
Chair Galvin?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Members Mullen, DeWitt, and Bartholow.
Thank you. Any statements of abstention by board members? Okay, very good. We have no study session. We have the minutes for the October 16th meeting. So at this time, I'll open it up for public comment on the minutes. If anybody wishes to comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one rise, the minutes will be approved and entered. We have one staff briefing. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our staff briefing is our water and recycled water supply update. And Peter Martin, Deputy Director, Water Resources, and Andrew Romero, Wastewater Reclamation Superintendent, will be presenting.
All right, thank you, Director Burke. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. Very pleased to be before you with the water and recycled water update. If you're curious, just tracking the rain from this last storm, it's a little over 3.5 inches of rainfall in our area so far, so about 128% of normal. So that's good kickoff through the month of October to begin our water year. So. Just a quick update on storage levels in Lake Pillsbury. As of the beginning of this week, storage is at 27,000, a little over 27,000 acre feet. If you'll recall from prior briefings, PG&E did ask for a variance for their deliveries through the upper Russian River and the East Fork of the Russian River, and their diversions through the project. As a result of the declining levels in Lake Pillsbury. That variance is in effect until storage reaches about 36,000 acre feet in Lake Pillsbury. So right now, just very minimal inputs coming in from the PVP project. In terms of storage in Lake Mendocino, storage is about 58,000 acre feet as of today. This is about 6,000 acre feet more than the storage this time last year. So, of course, looking very good for this upcoming wet season, and definitely some good news there. And then in terms of Lake Sonoma storage is a little over 222,000 acre feet. Which is exactly where we were about this time last year. So lots of carryover storage again going into the winter. And again, just a reminder that there is about 3 to 4 years of storage in Lake Sonoma when it's full. For the region, that is. And then just one note, we did learn that Sonoma Water did file a temporary security change petition according to their 180-day schedule that they file them twice a year. This is to comply with the biological opinion and the differences in their water rights for under Decision 1610. This is the same style of application they filed at this time last year. So really, from beginning in December, for determining their minimum in-stream flows, they are requesting that it be tied to the storage in Lake Mendocino to determine the hydrologic index instead of the cumulative inflow into Lake Pillsbury. So, and then just some kudos to Sonoma Water and the Army Corps of Engineers. They, this year, achieved a milestone in their forecast-informed reservoir operations approach. I think this board is well aware that it has been about 10 years that Sonoma Water has been pursuing opportunities to be able to encroach upon the flood control storage pool, Lake Mendocino. That was tested over time. I think it really started in the two droughts ago, right? Carrying over into 2013, 2014, there was a large release and it resulted in kind of a lower amount of storage, and because it didn't rain again after that, so Sonoma Water started to ask the question, what if they could get an increment of water and utilize better forecasting methodologies that were becoming available and tools to them to better manage that storage in the wintertime. This is the only twice in the history of the operations of this reservoir that it's been updated, so it's kind of a big deal, and it really makes permanent that piloted 11,650 acre-feet deviation from the flood storage control pool. So essentially, they'll get an extra 19% increase in storage during times when normally that water would be released to protect downstream entities from flood risk. So again, just more than 10 years of study. And then really, I think, too, I've reported to the board a couple times, they're piloting the same at Lake Sonoma. They've got a minor deviation in place right now, Sonoma Water, for about 19,000 acre-feet that they've been taking advantage of for the last few years. So they're proving that concept up there as well. So since we've had a few years where it's been normal to plentiful water supply, that's resulted in more than 90,000 acre-feet of storage in Lake Sonoma and Lake Mendocino being carried over into the drier months. So definitely kudos to folks for being forward-thinking. This is a novel way to reoperate reservoirs and generate more storage utilizing new weather forecasting tools to reoperate reservoirs, and it's likely that this is going to be applied throughout the state. So this is getting quite a bit of recognition. There was a water control manual signing ceremony on the 22nd of the month. If you go to the dam, you'll be able to see new signage that was unveiled at that event, talking about the forecast-informed reservoir operations. It was a very good event, and definitely, kudos to Sonoma Water and the Army Corps and many other partners for reaching this milestone and coming up with this concept. So, and Lake Sonoma's next, so stay tuned. And then finally, I just wanted to report out that on Monday, the Water Advisory Committee adopted a new statement of interest as it relates to the new Eel Russian facility, or NERF, and the associated water diversion agreement that was recently signed by the Eel Russian Project Authority. This is, I believe, the second time that the statement of interest has been updated. It was first issued in 2019. Obviously, the project has evolved substantially in terms of PG&E's plans, and also with the creation of the Eel Russian Project Authority, it was very timely to update that. So really, just to summarize, the updates include just really ensuring the interests of the water customers represented by the water contractors like Santa Rosa Water are considered. Wanted to reflect the development of the new Eel Russian facility that is currently under design by the ERPA, and now implementation of the water diversion agreement. And they really just continue to support our concept of continued participation and communication with the contractors of Sonoma Water, who are not members of ERPA, but are, via Sonoma Water's participation in ERPA. Since we didn't have a chance to add this to the agenda, Director Burke did ask that I sort of gloss over some of the changes, but I won't make you read all of this, of course, just sort of paraphrase most of it. But primarily, the emphasis added here is that they wanted to recognize that the water supply is significantly different when it comes to being north or south of the confluence with Dry Creek, and recognize that the continued diversion of via the NERF continues to support the overall water supply reliability and health of the fisheries, as well as the operations of Lake Mendocino, and then support Sonoma Water in their pursuit of modifying their Russian River water rights to be more reflective of where water supply sources come from. We discussed earlier the need for the temporary sea change petitions and things like that as well. So, and then just support the ERPA in evaluating all possible alternatives to a continued diversion. This is specific to the fact that this requirement is now in the water diversion agreement that was signed by the parties to that agreement, including ERPA, and ensure any outcomes by the board maintain water supply reliability and really support those significant investments to date by Sonoma Water and its contractors, and primarily that those costs for the future operations are allocated based on the benefit received by those folks. And then decisions regarding the PVP and NERF must remain consistent, of course, with the 2006 structured agreement that we are a party to as well. And then a little more, do not, support the actions in 2.4 and don't support reopening the restructured agreement prior to the current term. It was quite a journey to get there, of course, right? So not looking to reopen that without a cause. And then recognize that the parties to the water diversion agreement are not representative of necessarily just those and the contractors, but there's a diverse interests in that water diversion agreement, and the contractors are not a party to that. And then recognizing the investments and the water contractors already have significant state mandated obligations to continuously provide safe and reliable water supplies to the communities they serve. And that also recognition that the use of these new project water rights that are going to be transferred during the project will come at a significant cost via lease payments to the tribes that are supposed to take over those rights under the terms of the water diversion agreement. Continuing on, those lease payments come at a significant cost, and the funding is unknown. And then finally, this was an important one too, just in terms of the combination of the capital costs to operate, build, and maintain the NERF, future decommissioning costs and restoration payments could have a profound effect on the overall cost of future water coming through the Russian River. And we do not support a revenue scheme that has a disproportionate financial effect on the contractors because of the beneficiary pays kind of principle that we'd like to adhere to. And any costs for to the water contractors related to the continued diversion must be proportionate to the benefit received. Ask Sonoma Water ERPA to request the State Water Board enforce limits on water use, including those in the Upper Russian River that have not historically paid for the water nor really managed their water rights according to the conditions in the watershed. And then finally, just recognition that since 2006, via the restructured agreement, collectively, the water contractors have contributed over $50 million to the restoration of the Russian River watershed. So recognition of that substantial investment prior to this new project coming online. So that concludes my portion of the water supply update, and I'll hand it over to Andrew Romero. So.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Peter. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin and members of the board. My name is Andrew Romero, Reclamation Superintendent, and I will be providing you with a brief recycled water update. First, I just want to acknowledge the picture shown on the screen right now. That's Sea Pond. It's a 200 million gallon pond located at the Meadow Lane Storage Complex, which is located right across the street from the LTP treatment plant. So this is our recycled water storage curve. We currently have 291 million gallons in storage, which is average levels at this time of year. Staff continues to prepare for the wet weather season and prepping for discharge if needed. In addition, we currently are pumping 18 million gallons a day to Calpine to manage our storage levels and expect to deliver up to 117% of the geysers contract, which 90% is the required minimum. So that concludes the recycled water update. So we're happy to
Briefest
answer
one
any
ever.
questions.
I like it.
All right, I'll open it up for board member questions or comments. Vice Chair Arnone?
Yes, I have just a question about the statement of interest. And my question is, what are you going to do with that? What is it going to be used for, and how are you going to get maximum utility from it?
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question, Vice Chair Arnone. I'll do my best to answer and perhaps, defer to mainly the architect of some of this work. I don't know, Director. She worked with the other contractors too. But yeah, the goal is really to be reflective of the contractor's interests in any future projects. The evolution of this has taken on many twists and turns over the last several years. The contractors took a look at the last statement of interests and realized that, one, it was out of date given that now there is a new Joint Powers Authority formed. There are a variety of interests that have supported and signed on to this water diversion agreement, which these are substantial commitments that are coming out of these two items specifically. And so we did not, as contractors, want it to be lost that, we, primarily have substantial interests in, continuing operations of both Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma, but don't want it to be lost as to, Sonoma Water represents the contractors as well in their role on the Eel Russian Project Authority, and thus the contractors according to the restructured agreement, and making sure that, those interests continue to be represented in their continued pursuit of the project, as well as, recognition of the substantial investment by the contractors over the years, and really that there are some differences in the development of Lake Sonoma, right, as compared to the Upper Russian River as well. So I don't know if there's anything more to add, Director Burke, but.
Thank you, Deputy Director Martin. I think that's a good summary. The only thing I think I would add is that it also provides now an adopted document that's in the public record that provides direction to the Technical Advisory Committee members, the TAC, on how we're continuing to work with Sonoma Water, providing feedback and providing input on the various agreements and contracts and things that they are moving forward, as well as providing information to the Water Advisory Committee members to provide feedback to Sonoma Water's Board of Director liaison to the WAC, as well as the members who serve from the Sonoma Water Board on the Eel Russian Project Authority. So it really is a way to solidify the feedback that we're giving and make it consistent from the contractors.
Thank you.
Other board member questions or comments? Very good. We'll open it up for public comment on item number 6.1. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one rise, thank you for the presentation, gentlemen. That'll take care of item 6.1. We'll now move to the consent calendar. We have 3 items on the consent calendar.
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the consent calendar. We'll now open it up for public comments on the consent calendar. If anybody wishes to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one rise, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Mullen is absent. Board Member DeWitt is absent. Board Member Bartholow is absent. Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin?
Aye.
Okay, let the record reflect the consent calendar passes unanimously with Board Members Mullen, DeWitt, and Bartholow absent.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 8.1. Director Burke?
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Item 8.1 is a report item, Fleet Electrification Master Plan. And I believe Peter Peter Martin, yes. Okay, Peter Martin, Deputy Director of Water Resources, and Maddie Machado, Sustainability Coordinator, will be presenting. And we also have representatives from our consulting firm.
Welcome, everyone.
All right. I didn't have to go far for the second presentation. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. I'm just going to kick this off and then hand it over to the folks that worked intimately with a lot of the project and our technical specialists. But I just wanted to point out that this project represents about 2 years of consistent work, really driven by a coalition of different departments and folks that had a vested interest in complying with the new state regulations around government fleets. It took a lot of work to scope and bring a great team on board to complete the report. Definitely we want to be forward-thinking, and you may be questioning why the Board of Public Utilities is taking a look at this, but the city's fleet, about 40% of our operational fleet represented by water. So whatever occurs with this regulation going forward is going to have some potential impacts on ratepayer funds. So I'll just quickly kick this off and introduce the project team. To my left is Maddie Machado, a sustainability representative in the Water Resources Division. Brent Johnson, Vice President of NV5, as well as Arthur Singh, who also is from NV5. There were a multitude of contributions from the Transportation Public Works Department as well, especially the Fleet Division in this project. We had quite a bit of support too from Planning and Economic Development, as well as the Parking and Finance teams as well. So, and then just the NV5 team also had a sub-consultant, the Center for Transportation and Environment, who I believe is a nonprofit as well, right? That did a substantial amount of work on sort of the fleet evaluation too as well behind the scenes. So I'm very happy to bring this before you, and I'll hand it off to the rest of the team to continue the presentation.
Thank you. So just for some background on this project, sorry, not close enough. We initiated development of the citywide fleet electrification master plan in 2023.
Can you move the microphone a little
really
closer,
close.
please?
Really close.
Sorry, is that better?
That's okay.
We initiated the development with the award of an RFP and the award in April of 2024. This included obtaining $210,000 of the Federal Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, which is a one-time appropriation of general funds. The Water Department served as the project manager for this project, and then we met with a lot of other teams like Deputy Director Martin had mentioned, including Fleet Services and the other operational departments. We brought this to Council in 2025 to show you the completion of this project. Oh, sorry, wrong way. The goals of this project were to create a roadmap in order to comply with the state advanced clean fleet regulations that were proposed by the California Air Resources Board. Part of this goal is to create a strategy for continuity of fleet operations and city services. We wanted to evaluate the EV charging options during grid outages or unplanned power events, and provide policy recommendations to expand our access to electric vehicle charging. So there are two regulations that apply. The first is the California Advanced Clean Car, which impacts the smaller Class 1 and Class 2A vehicles. It also impacts other fleet providers, as they are required to increase the number of vehicles sold that must be zero-emission vehicles. The second regulation is the California Advanced Clean Fleet, which impacts the purchases of larger Class 2B and greater vehicles, including local and state government fleets. federal and private fleets are no longer included in this regulation. There are some exemptions for specialized utility vehicles, and there has been some changes made to this regulation, but they're not finalized yet. We will go over some of the specifics in a future slide here. And then looking at the City of Santa Rosa fleet, as Deputy Director Martin had mentioned, the 45% of the fleet is made up by City of Santa Rosa water vehicles, with the other 55% allocated to the other general funded departments. Of these vehicles, they are spread over 17 locations within the 7 city departments. After an analysis, 93% of these vehicles reside at 7 locations, not including emergency vehicles or transit buses. This data was used to provide NV5 in order to begin their analysis of the city fleet.
So I'm Arthur from NV5. I'll be sharing more of the analysis along with Brent Johnson. And so this graph is showing the vehicles spread by department. And as you can see, the water department has the most percentage of vehicles, followed by public works and then recreation. Transit has some vans here, but again, like what Maddie has said, these are vans, so more municipal fleet usage and not the buses, which are in a separate study done by Transit. Now this is an overview of the assumptions that we've made for the study. On the left side, let's talk about on the replacement side of vehicles. So we plan for vehicle replacements when they reach the end of their life cycle, and we worked with fleet to establish these age for replacement. It ranges from 8 years for a half-ton pickup truck to 17 years for a street flusher truck. And there are quite a few vehicles that are overdue for replacement using these kind of age thresholds. And so over the first 4 years of our study, we spread out those replacements so you don't see a big spike in expenditures in the first year. We plan for electric vehicle purchases when there is a feasible and suitable model of electric vehicle. So for explanation, a feasible vehicle is one that can serve Santa Rosa's fleet driving patterns. So number of miles driven a day or a number of hours driven a day. And suitable is when an electric vehicle equivalent vehicle exists. So for example, if there is an F-250 truck in Santa Rosa's fleet, if there is an equivalent pickup truck that exists in the market. We also established a cap of $10 million expenditure annually that is incremental to maintaining a baseline fleet, and that's just to help also smooth out some of the spikes that we're seeing. On the cost side, we referenced cost of electric vehicles currently in the marketplace. There are quite a few vehicle categories that do not have electric vehicle equivalent currently, and so for those categories, we plan for a 2.5 times price for the electric vehicle version of a gas vehicle, and this price range is perfectly what we're seeing in the market today. And moving on to the future, we're projecting prices to go down over time, and we reference studies done by the International Council on Clean Transportation to look at those cost reduction curves. In our study, one of the things that we saw was that there are some challenges with complying with advanced clean fleet regulations. And the biggest reason that causes this challenge is because the California Air Resources Board considers currently a lot of vehicles to be suitable for replacement. So for example, I'm showing here in a picture F-250 truck, which currently there's no equivalent electric vehicle in the market, but the rules that are written by California Air Resources Board would say that there is an equivalent because there is a electric vehicle chassis that's a van chassis that you could outfit with a pickup truck body style. And we've been speaking with Santa Rosa Fleet, and operationally that doesn't quite work for the fleet. And so there are a certain number of vehicles with current rules that are non-compliant.
So just about the time we were wrapping up the study, CARB came out with a meeting in September of this year and announced a number of changes to ACF. First one we all kind of knew about was the repeal of ACF for private fleets. This has to do with what's going on at a federal level, and the feds basically telling CARB they couldn't regulate private fleets. However, those regulations still apply to public fleets like Santa Rosa's. Second big change that came about was the adoption of AB 1594, which provided some more flexibility for municipal fleets as to which vehicles could be exempted, having to do with mileage and a few other factors on the vehicles. So this is provides some more flexibility to the city in complying with ACF. And then CARB also announced a number of changes that they are going to implement next year. First one is to move the 50% purchase rule out to the end of 2029. Right now, that's supposed to sunset at the end of next year. So you get an extra few years to purchase 50% new vehicles at zero emissions rather than 100%, which was supposed to start in 2027. There's also expanding that AB 1594 to apply to more fleets than just public service vehicles. And then they're also going to add some additional exemptions of vehicles to make it easier to keep operating ICE vehicles where there really is not good equivalence in the market. We do not know about, or these rules will not be finalized until next year, so it's hard to really implement them. The one that we really do know that CARB said is pretty concrete is that moving of the out to the 2030 date for the 50% purchase. So this is a look at Santa Rosa's fleet and the compliance with ACF that we are showing in our model. That first line up there with the 50 and 100% is the original rules for purchasing of electric vehicles. So by the end of next year, you are going to have to start purchasing 100% zero emission vehicles by the start of 2027. And with those recent changes, that's what's shown in the orange text there on that next line, that moves out to 2030. So it gives the city more breathing room on the ACF requirements. That next line shows what the model is showing for the city's compliance with the CARB rules. The color coding is aligned with the new rules for the 2030 date. So as you see this year and next year, we're projecting that the city is going to fall short of meeting the ACF goals. And that has a lot to do with just the availability of vehicles in the market. And then starting in 2027, we are showing compliance with these new rules. You can see 2029, we're in yellow. We're under that 50% number. However, we're building up some credits in the earlier years, and we should be able to be compliant in our model going forward from 2027. This chart just shows what the model fleet transition looks like over time. Green bars are the composition of the fleet that is electric. So by 2040, we are showing 100% electric fleet for the vehicles that were included in the study. And if you recall, that does exclude first responders and excludes transit, but transit is also moving on the same path with their vehicles as well.
So after our study, we have also planned out the phases of chargers installation to power these electric vehicles. We plan for them in 3 phases, roughly 3 to 5 years apart, and in line with our fleet electrification plan. The level 2 charging provides power of up to around 16 kilowatts of power, and it's sufficient for most of the fleet's operational needs. And those are the bars in green. And the bars in orange are level 3 chargers, or what is called DC fast chargers, direct current fast chargers. And they're typically needed for more larger vehicles with bigger energy demands. And On the right, you have seen here is a concept design that we've developed for Municipal Service Center North. And again, the orange are the fast chargers, and the green are the level 2 chargers. And we also have level 1 chargers here, and they're more for golf carts or utility vehicles or ATVs, those kind of vehicles. In total, we've developed concept designs for 8 sites listed on those right below there. Now talk about the fuel transition. Over time, just looking at the left graph here, the annual fuel consumption in terms of gasoline gallons equivalent is going down because electric vehicles are more energy efficient in just using the energy. And so over time, we're seeing a 63% reduction in energy consumed over time. And on the right graph, we're showing here the annual fuel cost. And so over time, we're also including the price of gasoline and diesel increases over time. So that's why the baseline is increasing. And at 2040, we're projecting a 53% reduction in fuel cost for operating the fleet.
But unfortunately, that fuel cost and the operational savings do not result in an overall savings for the project. What we are modeling is a nominal increase of $38 million over this study life in the cost of your fleet. That's for the capital cost and the operating cost of the fleet. That represents about a 32% increase in your fleet costs. You'll note we have included some incentives from PG&E where you're pursuing the EV fleet program where the utility is going to help pay for the infrastructure. However, we've excluded a number of other incentives from the study just because they are not secured and they are not certain. Inflation Reduction Act we excluded because of the federal changes going on. And there's a few other incentives noted over there. And a big finding of the study is to aggressively pursue incentives wherever possible. We do expect that you could bring the cost down from what's shown here. However, this program will be more expensive to do this electrification. Darker green bars are infrastructure, lighter green are vehicle additional costs. The gray bar is the business as usual costs of fleet. So the main findings of the study, first one is just your GHG reductions. You're looking at about 12.5 million kilograms of CO2 equivalents reduced over the next 15 years from this transition. As we showed on the last slide, a $38 million increase. That does include operational savings baked into it. So the actual increase of the infrastructure and the vehicles is around 45 million, but we're expecting that 6.5 million in savings on the operational side, both from lower maintenance costs and from the switch to electricity as a fuel. As we showed on an earlier slide, that near-term compliance with ACF is difficult because of vehicle availability in the market and just cost of vehicles. We do, our modeling does show that we can catch up and get into compliance with ACF in the next few years. And fourth finding, the city should aggressively pursue exemptions under ACF to maintain operational flexibility and also to lighten the load on your budget. And that's particularly important with the new exemptions that we expect to see next year. And I know the fleet folks are on top of these and are, I assume, anxiously awaiting to see what the new exemptions are going to be. The next finding is to standardize on a charge management platform and EV charger across the fleet. This is so that vehicles at different sites can easily charge and that you have one billing system that it will help you disaggregate that charging amongst the departments. There's the sixth finding is the transit is moving forward with a charging station now out at what's the
MSC
site?
North.
MSC North. And we are recommending that be used as interim charging as you're developing chargers at the other sites, and that has been discussed with transit as well. And last point is this plan should be updated once we see the new changes from CARB next year.
So moving on to phase 2 of our study, we started looking at how to charge these electric vehicles when there is a power outage. And so our study looked at 6 locations, and these are chosen by Santa Rosa. And on the map here on the right, you're seeing here the geographical location of those 6 sites. So the orange circles are where the 6 sites are, and the blue dots are where all the vehicles are located. And we reviewed 2 options for providing this backup charging. First is to have solar power, stationary battery storage, and generators at each of these 6 sites. And the second option is to just have generators at the 6 sites. So we looked at, we simulated the energy usage and for these power outages across 25 years. And we determined the capital cost and also the net present value when we include all the operational costs as well. So if we were to have generators at all 6 sites to power the fleet during an outage, it would have a cost of $2.6 million with a net present value after 25 years of $3.4 million. Whereas if you have solar, battery, and generators at all 6 sites, the capital cost is $14.6 million compared to a net present value of 11.8. So you might see, one number goes up and one number goes down, and that's because if you have solar and battery storage as well, during normal day operations, you can export that power and have PG&E provide some revenue back to the city. And then in terms of greenhouse gas emissions across the 25 years, the option with just generators would have more emissions, whereas if you have solar and battery as clean energy sources, it's a little lower. So here is a graph. It might look pretty complicated, but at a high level, the gray section is where we're modeling the power outage to happen. And so we simulated a power outage at 2 p.m. in this case. And the various curves are showing how the different energy resources are operating during that outage. And in this scenario, we're showing a situation where you have solar power, battery storage, and generator as well. And so it's a pretty complex system, and the main gist is, aside from being able to generate clean energy to power the fleet during an outage, a benefit of having this, multiple energy sources situation is that you can have the diesel generator be operated for longer because you don't need to refuel it as much.
So the findings of the resiliency study, the first one, as you saw earlier, resiliency adds cost. There's no way to put in enough solar or battery or get the cost down low enough on the solar and battery where we're offsetting on-site consumption to have it pay for itself. They're complex systems and they're expensive to build. So none of those scenarios resulted in positive savings over the life cycle of the project. There is a cost to resiliency, and it's kind of clearly outlined in our results. And the conventionally fueled generators are by far the most cost-effective option. They also don't operate that often, so the GHG emissions from using generators as backup we think is probably the best path forward for resiliency at these sites, unless there was some other funding mechanism for a solar battery with generator microgrid. And we still need generators for those extended outages, particularly if we were to have an outage, say in the middle of the winter, where we didn't have a lot of solar to fill up the battery every day. And if the city moves forward with backup generations at these sites, much more study should be done on the actual sizing of these projects and the regulatory requirements, and obviously do more detailed engineering estimates on the costs.
So the third and final phase of our study is a EV charger deployment policy. We worked with planning and economic development on this phase of the study. And essentially, the city's general plan 2050 and the greenhouse gas reduction strategy both recommended increasing EV adoption within the community. And so, also for more context, Santa Rosa has seen a significant population growth in the past 20 years and expects to see a further 30% growth in housing stock from 2019 to 2050. So as a result, Santa Rosa will likely see increased demand for EV chargers across the city, and planning and economic development wanted to plan ahead to facilitate these EV charger deployment across the city. So as additional context, now we're moving away from the fleet, from the city's own fleet operations and looking at the city's community adoption of EVs. For this study, we interviewed many different parties and stakeholders. We met with EV charging companies. There are two of them. One's called It's Electric, and one's called VoltPost. We talked with City of Santa Rosa, with the planning department, and also the parking department. We talked with the City of San Francisco. They have several pilots installing EV chargers in the community, and also the City of Alameda. So the main result from this study is that we came up with two options to increase availability of EV chargers in the community. And these are not mutually exclusive options, and so both can be done at the same time. One additional point that I missed making just now is that planning and economic development was looking into putting EV chargers in public rights of way, and so that's a special facet on this study. The first option here is to apply an impact fee. And so then impact fee can be applied to new developments based on different metrics like square footage. But for our study, we propose basing the impact fee on the development frontage. And that's the linear distance in front of a property along the roads. And this can be, once we collect that funding, the city can then develop the structure to use the funds and use that funds to install EV chargers in prioritized neighborhoods. Our study provided some list of recommendations on where these neighborhoods could be, but they could be in underserved communities, in core neighborhoods, in high-density residential areas, for example. In this option, Santa Rosa will own and operate these EV chargers. And one benefit of this is that the city can encourage EV adoptions in communities that may not see as many EV chargers being installed. The second option is to facilitate private agreements with private EV charger companies. In this option, the city will not be directly involved in installing or owning any EV chargers, but assist with streamlining and providing a clearer pathways for these EV charging companies to install EV chargers. For example, Santa Rosa can establish design guides for these companies related to accessibilities, fire codes, maintenance of the chargers. San Francisco and Alameda are two cities that have taken this pathway, and so we've also helped establish connections between Santa Rosa and those two cities to share best practices. And so we had some recommendations on developing this policy. And so first of all is to establish a task force. And a task force can be made of staff from various Santa Rosa departments, such as planning, parking, transportation, and public works. And it can also involve external parties like PG&E and private companies that are doing these EV chargers. This will help streamline decision-making, avoid overlap of work, and ensure accountability across different groups. And this task force can be responsible for establishing these streamlined permitting pathways for installing public-facing EV chargers on public right-of-ways, do public outreach in the community, and do monitoring and evaluation of any pilots that the city decides to do. We also recommend engaging with other agencies such as Sonoma Clean, Transportation Authority, with Metropolitan Transportation Commission, et cetera, just to learn from other stakeholders and learn about best practices. And lastly, we suggest creating a timeline for implementation of these pilots. And so the first thing is to select the planning tool that you want to use, and that is the option 1 and 2 in the last slide, and do some public outreach to see if there's any interest, any people who might push back on these options, and then collaborate with all the stakeholders to create and implement a system. And last thing is to do an evaluation of how that pilot went.
So all that was quite a bit of information at you, but this is an opportunity now for you to digest and ask questions of the project team. But it is our recommendation by Santa Rosa that the Santa Rosa Water, that the Board of Utilities by motion review the draft fleet electrification master plan's findings and recommend that the City Council accept the final draft of the plan. So with that, I think if you can advance the slide there, Arthur, we'll go to any questions you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll open it up for questions from the board. Board Member Wright.
Oh, thank you for the presentation. You know, my biggest concern about the electrification of our vehicles is the emergency situation. Even if you have the ability to charge vehicles when there's no power, assuming the generators actually work on the day you need them to and all that sort of thing, it takes time to charge a vehicle during, I don't know what it takes. I mean, I think it takes like at least several hours to charge a vehicle. And during emergencies, our vehicles are working 24 hours a day. So do you have a portable generator you can take to the field where you can plug it in while it's operating like you would your phone when it runs out, and so you can still make those phone calls? And I'm a little confused. Maybe it's in here and I just missed it, but like are our Vector trucks and backhoes and heavy equipment also included in this? Or is it just, it says in the narrative here, heavy duty internal combustion engines. So seems like they're included. So anyway, those are my comments and questions. Maybe you can respond. Thank you.
So on the first one with the backup power, the intention would be to provide enough power to operate some of the DC fast charging, but we're not going to be operating at levels where we're going to recharge in 20 or 30 minutes. There would be, an extended time frame to recharge those with the modeling that we ran. So that is a shortcoming, right? Is that time to recharge? So I don't know that I've got the solution for you right now, but the solution is, what we modeled was backing up the charging that was at the sites to meet the resiliency needs that we worked through with each of the departments. And what we said is, for a one-day outage, how would you expect your vehicles to operate and need to charge? And then for a 7-day outage, how many of your vehicles would you be operating, and how different would that look from normal operations? And we sized the charging to meet those resiliency needs. So if we move forward with actual microgrids at these sites, additional modeling should be done to look more at those duty cycles during emergencies, to your comment. But we did do some relatively detailed modeling to meet what we understood to be the operational needs and the charging dwell times during emergencies.
Arthur, you want to take the other one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the second question, I believe, was related to whether any construction vehicles are included. And the answer is yes. In the fleet list that we were provided, there is an excavator, there's a tractor, and forklifts. And so construction vehicles are included in our analysis. For those vehicles, definitely right now, there might not be a lot of electric vehicle options in the market, but we worked with Center for Transportation CTE, and they have a database of construction vehicles that are soon to be electrified. They also make projections on when those vehicles might be electrified in the future. And so we do not plan for replacements of those vehicles until CTE projects that they are available into the future.
Yeah, I'll just add, Board Member Wright, I think you mentioned Vector trucks, and there is no market equivalent for any of these today, right? This is a regulation that doesn't address that and is silent on that. I guess the hope is that through the lifetime that the market matures in a way that these vehicles do become available at some point. So, we did the best, and like Arthur said, with CTE to kind of model what the expectations are, but that is subject to change, and this plan is definitely meant to be very adaptive as a result of that, right? So, I think it's a good point. And then simultaneously, I think we did mention the changes proposed by the California Air Resources Board related to AB 1594. A substantial part of that is providing a lot of exemptions for utilities. So water falls under that category of a utility. So a lot of the vehicles could be subject to some broad exemptions and it's given the exact reason you're mentioning is that whether it be sort of mutual aid or some other reasoning, it just may not make sense to have an all-electric vehicle for a part of the utilities fleet because of the need to be out during an emergency for long periods of time or any other, there just isn't an existing, piece of equipment that can serve that need. So.
Other board member questions? Board Member Badenford.
Thank you very much. Just a follow-up on the exemptions and equipment. I guess maybe just thinking about it from the other direction, does the department feel like there's adequate language in there that would secure exemptions or call them out in such a way to where you feel confident that the water department can accomplish what it needs to in an emergency situation, despite maybe there being some mandates around the fleet with different heavy equipment? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Board Member Badenford. The regulations that they proposed in the meeting in September, I can have Brent add, but they're not finalized yet. And there are some interesting definitions, I guess, right, of what falls into certain categories. And I will say just, we participate in, say, the Association of California Water Agency that's very involved in the advocacy around these types of things. And there is a lot to be teased out as to what those exemptions are going to look like. But we're definitely engaged on that. And we want to make sure that we're advocating for our individual fleet needs, because not every fleet is the same, of course, and not every utility is the same. We also have vehicles out at regional, for instance, that need to be four-wheel drive or are traveling substantial distances. So I think we feel comfortable in some instances with those exemptions, right? So going up to the geysers in the middle of the night, right? That there's no opportunity there and there's some risk involved. So that is a great example of where an exemption for a utility would be handy because it exceeds a certain mileage every day. So MV5 has in the plan recommended that we fully utilize any exemptions that become available, and I anticipate we'll be continuing to advocate for what those look like and how we'll approach that.
I'll add to that. I think the utilities are the most vocal entities with CARB right now in seeking these exemptions, and from talking to CARB, I expect to see quite a bit more flexibility for water, wastewater districts.
Thank you very much. I'd be interested if, our department is feeling like there's some urgency in the advocacy as this moves forward. Thanks so much.
I have to say that until just recently, I'd never heard the term upfitted. And I was asked by a client to review an upfitting agreement for the first time. So from my limited knowledge and from what you've said today, upfitting is not an option for our vehicles in the water department. Is that fair to say?
The way I think we're using the term upfitting is taking, say, like a standard pickup truck and putting a service body on it, for instance, right? And I think what happens when you do that with that image that Arthur showed earlier with a cab chassis that's electric is you don't have a four-wheel drive vehicle, and you also don't have the weight rating or the haul. They're not made to tow, they're not four-wheel drive, and they can't carry the weight that the fleet needs. So I think those should be clear pathways to exemption that we're hoping to see next year with these CARB rule changes.
Okay, thank you. Any other board member questions or comments? All right.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Public Utilities recommend to the City Council acceptance of the plan.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll open it up for public comments on item 8.1. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. And when you do so, please state your name for the record.
Board Chair, Janice Carmen here, and the date on this is by 2040, so that's a ways away, and the questions are really good ones, and having lived through 2 fires and PG&E still not having honored the payment of the fires, et cetera. There's still a lot of things that are changing in the fire and the fire prevention conversation. And I went to something just very recently on the topic, and they were saying, one of the things they said was if your gas tank gets to be half full, think of getting additional gas. And to see this and to know the emergencies and the shortages and the difficulties and challenges that went with the first fire in 17 and to have lived through that, I think that there should be a backup of vehicles that are prepared, that do have the gas, unless there is a transition in the short term that changes the overall picture, because that's 15 years away they're talking about, and things are changing really quickly, especially with AI and all the other things that are going on. So I don't think that it's a good idea to just go with this as it is right now, or to say that you could change it later, because things are hard to change later. So thank you, but it was a really great presentation, and I really do appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Unfortunately, I think to a large degree we're stuck with the legislation and the orders that we have to follow and the timeline that's been given to us. Any other questions or public comments? All right, may I have a roll call on the vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
Chair Galvin?
Aye.
Okay, and that passes unanimously with Board Members Mullen, DeWitt, and Bartholow absent.
Thank you again for the presentation, everyone. We'll now move to item 9, public comments on non-agenda matters. If you wish to make a comment on a non-agenda matter, please move to the podium, and again, state your name for the record.
Board, Janice Carmen here. I'm having a real problem with PG&E, and I had called them about March of this year and had reported surges that were, it was actually, I could hear it in my house and I could see it on the outlets in my house. And at first they were acting like they didn't know what I was talking about. I had to call back 4 times. I finally called, a few months later again for the 4th time. And they said they'd send somebody out, and they sent somebody out, and he said, oh, well, they would make a report. There was somebody else who was supposed to call me. Nothing ever came of it. But what they did do is one day I came home and there was a PG&E truck parked at my house and he was just leaving. So I just made a U-turn and followed him to the stop sign and tried to let him know I was there, thinking that maybe he stopped and he wasn't able to reach me. So it turns out that the meter was changed to a smart meter, and I'm an opt-out person, and I should still have opt-out, and I never requested that the meter be changed. I still have the same problems, and it's an ongoing situation, and I don't know what to do about it, but it's PG&E again, and PG&E has caused a lot of problems since the fires.
Thank you again for your comments. I'm frankly not sure what this board or our department can do about it, but I hope you're able to resolve the problem. Okay, we have no referrals. We have no written communications. We have one subcommittee report. I'll report that the Contract Review Subcommittee met on November 3rd. We considered a personal service agreement with CDM Smith to do an update of our regional water reuse system master plan. The committee unanimously voted to recommend approval to the full board, and that matter will come before the board on our meeting on November 20th. Are there any other board member reports? If not, we'll open up for public comment on item number 12. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one, do we have any board member reports? Okay. Director's report.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. 2 quick items for you. First, I wanted to let the board know that Santa Rosa Water and Sonoma Clean Power have approved a non-binding agreement and term sheet to pursue a feasibility study and potential design to develop, improve, or expand our biogas operations at the wastewater treatment plant. It's a non-binding agreement. There is no cost to Santa Rosa Water or its ratepayers. Sonoma Clean Power is very interested in potential opportunities to reduce or offset the peak load for the Laguna treatment plants during times when the energy grid is stressed. We are the largest user of energy in the county. And Sonoma Clean Power has prioritized the stability of power demand and local renewable generation in order to align with their clean energy procurement goals. So as such, with LTP being the largest energy consumer, if we can shave off some power during peak times, it could yield substantial cost savings, stability, and operational flexibility for Sonoma Clean Power. So I wanted to let the board know that we are embarking upon this. Again, no cost, non-binding, and trying to see if there might be opportunities for us to explore with Sonoma Clean Power. And second, on October 31st, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, filed their formal regulatory notice related to the receipt of PG&E's license surrender application and non-project use of project lands application. As you may recall, PG&E formally filed their license surrender application and non-project use of project lands application back in July. And so this action now begins FERC's formal review process, soliciting comments, motions to intervene, or protests related to the filing. The deadline for submitting comments is December 1st. So I wanted to let the board know that that is also moving forward. And that's my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Yes, Vice Chair Arnone.
Use your words, Bill. So my question has now flitted from my mind. But I'm sorry.
Anybody want to jump in while he tries to remember?
I'll get to you later.
All right. We'll now take public comment on the item number 14, the director's report. Anybody wishing to comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one. At this time, we're going to have a closed session. I'll ask Assistant City Attorney Hofstetter to make the announcement.
Thank you, Chair Galvin, members of the board. We have one closed session item on the agenda. It's for a conference with legal counsel for existing litigation.
Prior to us recessing, we will take any public comments on item number 15. Seeing no one rise towards the podium. Deputy Director. All right, we'll now go into closed session, and then we will reconvene afterwards back down here in the chambers. All right, I believe we're all here, so we're back in session. If we may have a roll call, please.
Board Member Wright?
Here.
Board Member Badenfort?
Here.
Vice Chair Arnone? And Chair Galvin?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Member Mullen, DeWitt, and Bartholow.
Thank you. I'd now ask Assistant City Attorney Hofstadter to report out on our closed session.
Thank you, Chair Galvin. There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
Very good. We'll now take any public comments on item 17. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one rise, that'll take care of the closed session item. That'll take care of our agenda. We are adjourned.
Okay, see you in 2 weeks.